Put the hand up to the back, but everyone's coming from different tables, so I don't want you to feel like you were cheated from not having the important piece of paper you paid for.
So I'm probably not the best person to have because I sat on my house as I spoke first of all something whatever my security probably gets me and I just cut off my bank statement. Yeah, like what the yeah, like if I close it out, so I could be paying for something.
You do not need to introduce me, I can introduce myself. I put the go live on the Zoom, but no one's joined.
So good, we're recording. Just
saying that I did my thing.
Perfect.
So if you're ready, I'm happy to go.
Let's go.
All right, well, thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I'm Michael Stinziano. I do have the honor of serving as your Franklin County Auditor. Born and raised in Columbus, which meant when I was 18, my goal was to go south, and wear a t-shirt and sandals as many days I could. Went to University of Richmond, didn't know Richmond's mascot. The Spiders, the only Division 1A arachnid mascot. So I challenge folks if it's more unique to be a spider or poisonous nuts. Boomeranged back, went to Ohio State, had the opportunity to be a public servant, State House, Columbus City Council, and now obviously as your auditor. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I have some topics to cover, but happy to answer at any point your questions, what's of interest to you. And you can ask me anything, so don't hesitate. So first thing was less than a week ago, we had an election. So the value of your vote was a big activity. We still are sharing this when we're talking about what to present because of the impact it has had or will be having when tax bills come out. Voters went to the ballot box and supported a large Columbus City School ballot levy and a Dublin City School levy in particular. That is going to have a big impact. On average, after the reappraisal, the average tax bill increase in Franklin County was $253. Now it's $707. In Dublin, I saw some eyebrows. Their average increase was $455. Now it's $17. And so that's where the ballot value of your vote is so important. We're already getting calls, unfortunately, because if you called Columbus City Schools today and said, I'm concerned about the levy and increasing my taxes, they're telling people to call the auditor's office. I remind people it's the treasurer, not the auditor, the treasurer who sends out the property tax bill and collects it. I put these handouts on that back table for anyone that came in and didn't get one, just so you're aware. Back table right there. But that's where the ballot levy estimator is so important. It will still be live for folks that want to go and see the impact of potential reappraised value with those ballot issues. We'll talk a little bit about the distinction between what we have and your own value and say, but that value of the vote is so important. It doubled in some places, almost tripled. There's property taxes. questions on that? Everyone's just okay with it. That's what it looks like when you go to the website. We use the language. Yes.
What about sustainability?
So
As taxes increase, and every 3 years they increase. Eventually,
No, no.
sustainability is
Not-
an issue.
not every 3 years do the taxes increase. But you'll see on the back of the sheet. There was a universe of folks, or maybe on the countywide property tax limits. About 10% were seeing a tax increase of $1,000 or more. We had around 25% that saw $500 to $1,000 more. The rest of that, so about 65% of Franklin County property owners prior to these levies passing were seeing a $500 increase or less. In some cases, value went up, taxes went down in about 25% of Franklin County. So just the reappraisal, that's the story that tells. Now, the General Assembly said, go to the ballot. And if the voters approve it, we'll see that increase. And so that's where the sustainability piece comes into play. I don't know how to tell voters that their taxing district was just impacted, other than to say this is now what we're going to see. I think you had an opponent campaign saying this is going to increase taxes, this is going to result in people property tax out of their neighborhood. Yet overwhelmingly voters supported both issues. So then we go to the General Assembly and say, hey, what changes would you like to see? And all I'm hearing is maybe they're gonna come back around to modernizing Homestead right now, but I don't know how they will continue to implement that system.
I mean, these are the questions that we get.
Yeah.
And in the commercial world, that can make or break an investment because taxes can more than them.
Right. And so in that piece, the General Assembly did change the way school districts can pursue commercial changes.
So driven from the school districts.
It has been, yes.
Yeah.
So how many of you have a commercial client or have had a commercial client and the board of the school district initiated a complaint? So that's what was going on, particularly Columbus City Schools. They were very aggressive up until 2 years ago. That if there was a commercial sale, they were always going to after it. The auditor's office doesn't chase the sale, it's the school districts immediately. So not waiting for a 3-year update, either reappraise or a triennial or a mass reappraisal. They would just initially file and say, this was the sale price, it was here, we want the full amount. They cannot do that unless certain requirements are now being met. Although the way the General Assembly updated the legislation allows for a third party. So now the school districts are using, as we've seen in a couple of cases, a school district employee to be that third party that's now initiating the complaint. So they tried to address the concern, but did not fix the problem. So that remains out there where you're concerned of the commercial deal. Are we gonna all of a sudden get school districts coming after us and trying to get more taxes? Seems to be a problem. Was there a comment in the back?
No, I was looking for, okay, no.
So don't bring good news on the value of your vote. School districts, one in Columbus, taxes are going up outside of the mass reappraisal. Biggest activity we've had in the auditor's office this year was the mass reappraisal. It's something we've actually been working on since the triennial. So every 3 years, you either do a triennial update under Ohio law or a mass reappraisal. The mass reappraisal is a bigger shot of updating values. We have to go out and review, mostly a drive-by, but we'll get out of the car. If there's something going on, what's going on with that property, with our property record, wanting to capture and update the valuation per Department of Taxation's requirements. So we went out in August on our Know Your Home Value website and said to every property owner, both commercial, residential, industrial, what have you, this is the auditor's tentative value. We spent August notifying folks either on the value or on the website, then we mailed a notification. Said still auditor's tentative value. If you're fine with that value, you don't have to do anything else. That value will be what gets carried forward again with the treasurer, not the auditor. The treasurer sends out the property tax bill. However, if you think an adjustment needs to be made, some of our information is inaccurate, or there's something going on, and we don't go inside any of the properties, let us know. And so individuals, property owners were able to schedule property value reviews, either in person, virtual, or just provide document submissions. We scheduled for having about 20,000 of those. We had about 10,000 in September, about 20,000 properties. We have gone through that review, sent it back to the Department of Taxation, They have now sent us back a final abstract. So in December, on the Know Your Home Value website, you will be able to find the auditor's final value for the treasurer, not the auditor, the treasurer's tax bill purposes. Questions on that mass reappraisal dance of where we're at? So so we're still getting emails, hey, I have questions about my value. Is it too late to contest it? Yes. We will talk a little bit about the Board of Revisions though. That is the next stop. But we are lucky in Franklin County. We have the ability for anyone that took advantage. Did anyone take advantage of a property value review in September for document submission? So you're all happy with my values. That's the best news I've gotten all day.
But I can test that, for one of my clients, I don't know what's happened.
So you won't know what happened, right? So we just heard back from tax last Thursday that they approved it. So we will be notifying anyone that provided documents or medicine in person or virtual, starting December 1st. Here's the auditor's final valuation. So those 10,000 property owners that took advantage of the 20,000 properties were reviewed. That's where they're going to receive notification. If you did not participate in any of that, the value we sent out in August, still on the website, is what's going to carry forward for next year's tax purposes.
How are they notified, by mail?
We will notify by mail, and we'll also have it on the Know Your Home Value website. So Know Your Home Value website was our awesome tool that we utilized this year. Two big questions I get during the reappraisals: what's my value? What are my taxes going to be? This is the first time that we had a property tax estimator. So it was a range. What I often hear from folks, just this belief that your value can go up, but your taxes can actually go down. That is actually what can occur. Property value can go up, taxes can go up. Your value could go down, your taxes could go up. It is your property, 35% of the auditor's valuation with your taxing district, which is going to drive that property tax increase or decrease. So that's why we put out the estimator. The reason it's an estimator, so if you utilize the tool, you saw a range, is we didn't know what the final values would be. A change in your taxing district, a change in your delineated neighborhood would have an impact, but it's not going to be super drastic. And so that's why we were comfortable putting out that levy estimator. So if you go to the auditor's website right now, the Know Your Home Value website is still live, still going to exist a little into December. And then we're going to move on and utilize some of the resources and the tools, put them in other places on the website, but you'll no longer find the Know Your Home Value website.
What make we?
You go to franklincountyauditor.com/know your home value. You can look up any property in Franklin County, not just your own, to see what the auditor's tentative value is. Soon in December, it will be the final value, which is what's going to carry forward. So first question, what's my value? Second question, what are my property taxes? You're able to utilize that. The third one we would often get is, what are my neighbors' values? And so you can look at our handy dandy GIS mapping. You can see the delineated neighborhood. What were the other properties within your delineated neighborhood? What were their values set at? And kind of see what we were looking at. Were there recent sales? What's going on in that area? To also compare, do I think I'm in the range that I should be in, or do I think the auditor's office got it totally wrong? All fair game, all things and information we wanted people to be able to find, utilize, and take advantage of. How many of you went to the Know Your Home Value website? A couple of you, excellent. So all that said, that's where we're at in this point in time. We will also be moving now into the Board of Revision season. So if you are still not satisfied with the auditor's valuation, the Board of Revision is the traditional annual window where any property owner can file a complaint and go before the Board of Revision. Board of Revision is more quasi-judicial than a property value review that we had during the mass reappraisal. Board of Revision is made up of the auditor, treasurer, Board of Commissioner, representative. If you're seeking a change in value over $50,000, it's going to trigger notification to the school district where they can file and say, we disagree, we think it should be this. If it's a $50,000 or less, we will more often than not encourage property owners to go through our mediation program. There's a third-party mediator, takes two sides and trying to get to what that valuation could be. Mediation program has been around for decades. Its goal was to kind of move people out of the BOR so those bigger cases can be heard. Again, it's quasi-judicial. The desire is for evidence to be presented. You can't just say, you can, I think my value should be this, but if you don't back it up with any documentation, the likelihood you're going to get to that is not very realistic. How many of you been to a Board of Revision before? So painless, but painful at all at the same time.
It was painful.
It was painless. Good news with Board of Revision, lessons were learned and we're able to pivot during COVID. So now we also have virtual You don't have to come down to the courthouse, look for parking, get up to the building, sit around. You can schedule those meetings, so if you've got clients out of state, they can participate, not have to fly in or not fly in anymore. Board of revision window is opening mid-November. It carries through March 31st. So what we really encourage anyone to do is wait till you see the auditor's final value in December. If you think an adjustment needs to be made, take advantage of the board revision. If you have clients who are kind of on the fence, want to learn more, we will have our board of revision information sessions. We will do them at libraries across the county in January and February. We want property owners to come, ask questions. They can, while the auditor's office administers the board of revision, it's still made up of those three entities, but we will work with whoever, answer any questions. If they decide to file that day, they can. If they decide to file and later withdraw it, you can do that as well. But encourage people that have questions on the valuation, board of revision is the next step. What unfortunately we often see is people don't wait, they wait till they get the property tax bill from the treasurer and then say, what happened here? Why did the value go up? What's going on with those taxes? We're gonna have to tell that big story about the Columbus City School and Dublin levies through where the value really shot up. It was not necessarily the reappraisal. For 10% it was, but for the vast majority, it's gonna be what happened on the ballot last week. That's going to impact property taxes. The example I use is Gahanna. City schools in 2020, our average increase was a 20% increase through the triennial update. Property values in Gahanna in 2020 went up 22%. Their property taxes went up 27%. They passed a big school levy. And so in the last 3 years, 99% of the time when I get a call from a property owner talking about my taxes went up way too high, they lived in Gahanna. It's gonna be tougher for me to do with Dublin and Columbus City Schools issues, but that's part of where we have to educate folks in the auditor's office. If you call Columbus City Schools right now, they tell you to call the auditor's office, so I'm trying to get that fixed. If you've got questions about taxes all of a sudden. It was their initiative, it was their levy, they won, but now how people are going to pay, what options are out there. County has a very small role, but we do have options and opportunities to answer that. Questions on board of revision? Yep.
When you talk about property values, that includes land.
It does.
Okay.
So often, so it does include land. So a good example is if you have a home that's hit by lightning and destroyed by fire. We want you to file a damaged and destroyed property form. We will lower the value to the highest use, which would be just that land.
Yeah.
If it's destroyed. So yes, we do assess the land. There's a value there. It's not going to be as high as the structure and other uses that could get built on. Good question. Other questions? Other thoughts? You guys look all very skeptical of me. Don't be skeptical.
So a lot of the neighbors in my neighborhood, didn't quite understand the process because some of them already knew it was going up because of the triennial. But the last time we all talked, the average homeowner in my neighborhood, they went up 20,000, but I had one neighbor that was upset because they went through a massive renovation and you actually lowered their value of their property by $40,000.
Did we have the permits from their massive renovation?
I think so.
Is that address?
There's a couple of things. If they did do a renovation and we have permits, you're right, it should not be going down. Depending when we went through our process, because we go across 450,000 properties, it could have not been caught in that cycle. We do not get the permits. We have to go to them. We eventually get them. We have to go to each municipality and ask them to submit the permits to us. Some municipalities do it every month, some wait years. And so depending where it is, I may have a record of it on our property card or we may not. It's up to that then neighbor to decide, do I want to share where the valuation should be? Typically, if people are planning to sell in a year, they want us to have it at the highest values. They're very quick to say, oh, actually, we've had 5 bathrooms the whole time, not 2. We don't go inside the property, so we have to rely on that. We do hear from neighbors as well that say something got built, it's complete. You don't have it at that full valuation, please come out. We will go out in those cases. Again, don't go inside, but we'll update it accordingly. So, you know, it is interesting if we have the permits that their value would have gone down. We do annual maintenance. So as we get updated on permits, as there are recent sales that are occurring, Those get caught every year during the annual maintenance process, so that will take place in October, November. We kind of sweep the county, so it's not just always a 3-year update, but if other activity is occurring. Under Ohio law, we want the highest best value, and so that's what we are required to do.
Okay, cause I know like with my property, I mean, I had an issue where. Your site says that it was built in 1920, but it was actually built in 1907. I had raised that issue to someone and. It's still at 1920 and I did that, several years ago.
How many years ago? More than 5?
Yeah.
So I wasn't the auditor then.
Yeah.
I like that. If you shoot me an email, we'll get it updated. Okay. There was a great fire at the county at one point, so records only go back so far. They should carry beyond 1920 though, but a lot of records were lost, so when you see something, sometimes it's just as old. It's because of the great damage and fire that occurred at the courthouse back in the day. We have better records now, but that's depending how far back in time you go. But if you shoot me an email, we will update it. Any property owner that you have that says their information is incorrect, feel free, email me, Auditor Stinziano@frankcountyohio.gov. We have that process. We want to update it. One thing that I inherited. So in 2017 was the last time the auditor's office did a mass reappraisal. The auditor at that time chose to change vendors. And so not only taking on the biggest project, but also a big onboarding of a new vendor. We have been kind of chasing our tail to get the data accurate and updated ever since 2017. So it's a frustration point for me, but it's within the statistic significance where it's okay. But I want all our data, particularly as we're growing out, has tax implications, to be as accurate and true as possible. But I can always go back and it's, in 2017, when the one vendor left and the other one came on, that's where the data kind of got stuck. But shoot me an email and we'll get you updated. There was another question.
Are you gonna go local, me or her?
Well, I thought it was the gentleman.
Okay.
So then I will go to her and then to you.
So if a homeowner does not pull a permit and they do the renovation, and when they come to sell, as you related, they wanted a higher value for their home based on the renovations that they did or the addition. So you said you come out and evaluate, what is the process here?
So they pulled permits, so they put an addition on their house. We never caught it. They never pulled permits. Their neighbors never called us. That's who normally calls us. And says there's a permit or there's an addition and you guys don't have it captured. We would not get it until the sale. And typically at the sale, we send out a welcome home postcard. So for new homeowners and ask them to come check the property record. If there's anything that needs to be updated, let us know. Or in that case, maybe the seller says, oh, now I'm going to notify the auditor's office. They just have to notify us. Our appraiser would ask for documentation and then we'll update it. We won't claw back the lost taxes in that case.
Are they responsible for getting it permitted at that point? Or?
I mean, they should have had a permit in the first place.
Yeah.
That's between the local municipalities, building and zoning, not the auditor's office.
So there is no penalty or anything like that?
Not from the auditor's office. I don't know if the municipality will be mad and upset, and how their building and zoning folks would handle it.
We've actually seen one that came through this office as a transaction. We had the buyer, the buyer's agent, helped them purchase a home. They got in, the person had flipped it, did not pull permits. And the people closed, moved in, and within 2 weeks got a notice on their door that they needed to come in. They actually, the permitting department made them tear out drywall so they could look, inspect wiring, plumbing, all of that. So then it ended up with a situation with us as a brokerage and their brokerage saying, your client's not stuck here, so this was not split, So yes, they will take action. I don't know what.
I'm gonna guess that wasn't at the city of Columbus.
It was.
It really?
Yes,
They were that
it was in
aggressive.
Linden.
Interesting, Linden.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, normally we hear from neighbors. If we don't get the information, informants weren't pulled. People are very quick to let us know what's going on in their neighborhood, particularly if they seem frustrated or there's activity. You had a question?
I was gonna ask if you were gonna go into the permitting piece, so we're good.
Okay. Other questions? Again, I want to be responsive to what's of interest to you. Yeah.
So when you say you have a low value and a high value,
Yes.
how are you finalizing that determination, whether it's the low end or the high end or in between.
So now that we have the final values from Department of Taxation, it's going to be set. We're gonna, and I have not had a chance to go back because we just got the abstract approved on Thursday. But that range was gonna be based on if there was any play within that validity neighborhood. So in theory, it should be somewhere in that middle, if nothing else changed. But we know we had property owners, 10,000 of them participate in a property value review meeting. And so that could adjust to the high or low range, depending on what adjustments occurred on those individual properties.
Does the county look at, if you're, rental properties differently than primary properties?
We do not for valuation purposes. If it's a commercial, so 3 units or more, yes, it gets evaluated different, but if it is
Single family.
correct, it will not be. It just doesn't get the owner occupancy tax credit. And we hopefully have them registered with the rental registration. For those who aren't familiar, Franklin County is one of the few counties under Ohio law that you have to participate in a countywide rental registration. The penalty is $100 if you don't do the registration, so there isn't a big stick. But it's something not all counties have. Some local municipalities in Franklin County do have their own independent rental registration, but that is also an area that we're constantly reminding folks of that statutory obligation, similar to dog licensing. The auditor is also the chief dog licenser, and we see less than 40% of dogs get licensed across Franklin County. Questions? So Board of Revisions, encourage if you got clients when they get that property tax bill from the treasurer, not the auditor, the treasurer. Remind them, Board of Revisions, have them come out to what will soon be the Board of Revision information sessions. They can learn more about the process, decide if they want to file. Again, if it's a $50,000, that is the trigger in Franklin County Auditor's Office through mediation. We're going before the more formal Board of Revision. We do get a lot of questions. We're already getting a lot of questions about concerns on taxes. We administer a homeowner assistance program. So for qualifying individuals, they can either sit down with an attorney or a realtor to talk about a potential Board of Revision filing. So, hey, I hear this process. It sounds very intimidating. What do you think I have an opportunity to get an adjustment or not? And so partner them up. The local association's been great in helping get some stakeholders. You get additional credit for participating in it. And so that's of interest, but homeowner assistance program is to help them through the Board of Revision. Auditor's Office also administers the PTAP program, Property Tax Assistance Program. It is for qualifying individuals for a one-time assistance on property taxes. And the qualifying really is that there's been a change in circumstance, so maybe loss of employment, losing someone in the household, helping bridge through that first next property tax bill they'll get from the treasurer. The treasurer has a couple programs that we also like to highlight. There's a payment plan program a lot of people aren't aware of. So instead of getting 2 lump bills every year, you can parcel and budget it out monthly. That is administered through the treasurer's office. Contact me, we'll get you that information, but that's the treasurer's office. And then she also has a starfish program, which is also meant to help people not go delinquent on their taxes, work on budgeting, and an additional benefit, again, administered by the treasurer's office, not the auditor's office. So those are the topics I came with. You guys let me talk really fast. Email me anytime, call the office anytime. What is concerning you all? What's top of mind? What do you want to know about? Or we're all good. I didn't answer every and all questions, which is fantastic.
The homestead tax
Homestead, yes.
exemption.
So homestead exemption for qualifying Ohioans 65 and older and making income, I think it's less than 27,000 as a household right now. Homestead is unfortunately not as good as a number of other states. For the history of homestead, it had both that age and economic piece. Different governor came in, he got rid of the economic piece and it was just age-based. Tons of older residents qualified. They all jumped in, they got it, going gangbusters. Unfortunately, at the same time, the state budget was shooting down. We ended up with the state budget bringing a fund of 80 cents. So another governor came in and put back that economic piece. The reason it's so important at the state is the state reimburses the difference of that tax exemption. So if I got a $500 homestead exemption, I'm years away from qualifying, But if I got it, and so it's $500, the state will pay those taxing entities that $500 difference. So it's money out of the state's purse and why they have not modernized or kept it updated. In the state budget, they did add tying the award to inflation. So if you do qualify for it, you get a little more amount. Unfortunately, with the impact of levies and the valuation, it isn't going to be as impactful. There is now discussion again to change that economic piece, make it more of a tiered system. They want to get more older Iowans to qualify. But they don't, the example they always use is Les Wexner shouldn't get the homestead. He does not. But they say, why should he get the homestead? And so they're going to tier it based on income. So at some point, maybe there is no benefit, but they are trying to expand it out. That's the latest discussion on homestead modernization. If that sounds of interest to you or your clients, contact your members of the General Assembly, tell them it's important. Last General Assembly, there's about 9 homestead bills, none of them went anywhere. Right now, we're at 2 for the new General Assembly, but that does seem to be getting a lot of their attention. Something you might have heard about is the 70 at 70 proposal. Did anyone catch that one? It was a nice little media squirrel moment. They heard 70 at 70, so you'd have to be 70 years of age and make a household income of $70,000 or less to qualify for the homestead. So they were expanding the pool. That bill has been introduced, had committee testimonies, so sponsor, and then has gone nowhere. But we get calls at least maybe 5 a week. I want to qualify for the 70 at 70 program. Where do I sign up? Because they saw it in the media. It's another opportunity to modernize homestead. Franklin County's office is supportive, but it is a long way to go to get through the General Assembly. Other things, you guys like talking about the General Assembly? Other things you may have heard on the General Assembly, there was an effort, it's called House Bill 187, to instead of doing the tax lien date, which is how we currently did the mass reappraisal, to do a 3-year average. So where on an average in Franklin County values went up 40%, doing the 3-year average values would go down to 28%. So it'd still be a historic increase, but we would be arbitrarily lowering the values instead of the tax lien date of the most recent sales, most recent activity, to try and lower the property tax impact that people would see. What that would mean though, is other people's taxes would go up. So with tax equalization, and the way a taxing entity gets their bill, so let's use the library system's old one. So the library said, hey, we need to raise $10 million. Voters, will you approve that? Voters said yes. The library will always get that $10 million once it's approved. Then it turns into how the piece of the pie for us as property owners get divvied up. And so when we go through the master appraisal, if you saw a value jump increase, you're probably going to be paying a little bit more of that pie. Some people whose values went up but not higher than the average will be paying a little less of that pie. By doing the 3-year average, those that were paying a little less are going to see a jump. Those that were paying more will go down. So again, picking winners and losers, I don't know what the right answer is. That passed out of the House. Now in the Senate, just last week, the Senate started talking more about homestead modernization and getting away from that 3-year average. My concern of doing the 3-year average, while it would address this year by lowering it to 28%, in 3 to 6 years, when we do the training or the master appraisal, it's going to jump even higher then, no matter what occurs. And then you've got some counties that are saying, well, what 3 years are we looking at? Because in some of the counties, it's going down. And now all of a sudden they're being held to a higher 2 years ago rate. And so that's a lot of discussion of what's going on in the State House. They also put in the state budget bill a property tax study committee. I think there is a lot of awareness that sustainability on this property tax system is not going the way people want. Constituents are definitely engaging their members and saying this isn't great, we want it fixed. And so they have a committee to review that, whether or not that turns into real changes to be determined. And that wouldn't kick in until next year, it's 2024, the study committee.
Question.
Yeah.
With the 70/70 on the homestead exemption, if the house for homestead exemption, if your income is based upon $27,000 a year, does that have a ratio increase when taxes increase 20%?
It does not. That's why it states. So that's why you're seeing less and less Ohioans take advantage of it. Our population is getting older and older, but that number's been stagnant. And so less and less qualified.
You're eliminating more people.
Correct. Yes, and you might have called, if you get the dispatch alert, I got a nice little breaking news that Auditor Stinziano says Ohio is an awful place to grow old in. That was the conversation we were having. It wasn't necessarily the headline I wanted, but it was a nice
Page
clip.
3.
What?
Wasn't on page 3, was it?
No. Yes.
So, most buyers, when we come to close, they wanna know how soon, because of the, they paid higher for the price, as far as prices, they wanna know. How soon their taxes are gonna go up and by how much, and especially on new builds. Where taxes are based on the land, so how do I?
Good political answer, it depends. So if the school district does not file, or a third party on behalf of the school district does not file, it will catch them in about a year. So that would get caught as part of our annual maintenance. If the school district decides I'm going to file a board of revision complaint and initiate it, it could get caught within 3 to 4 months. Depending on how that board of revision goes, or that third party complaint.
So basically, the school is
Yes,
the one that initiates this.
they do. And they contact us all the time asking, is this address in our district or is it in another district? They are very aggressive.
Good, but, okay.
Can you speak to the fact that with all the growth in central Ohio, property values are anticipated to increase by 30% in the next few years, et cetera? A good way to explain how millage is calculated and
Is there a good way to explain it? No. I encourage them to go look at, use the tools on the auditor's website. Your correct value, you want property values to go up. That is a good thing. And it's not necessarily the values people get upset at, it's what's the correlation to taxes. And so to your point on understanding what a mill is, understanding what your taxing district is, that's where encourage come to the auditor's website or go to the treasurer, see the breakdown of where the property taxes are going. It's going to be in the school district, will be the vast majority of that property tax bill, but we are very generous in Franklin County. We fund a zoo in Delaware. We just re-upped for our library system. We fund a community college that also has a branch in Delaware County. Metro Park spread outside Franklin County. That all shows up in that property tax bill. So I think that helps kind of explain what's occurring. The hesitation is, hey, I'm budgeting on a commercial side. We are trying to do a 5-year forecast. What can I tell my client? It's really going to be driven by what happens at the ballot. I was shocked Columbus City Schools let me pass last week. For a variety of reasons, but it didn't just pass, it was overwhelming. And now people, because Columbus City Schools telling them to call us, are sharing the concern of, well, how am I now supposed to pay this back to the whole sustainability that we started with? I don't know how to help guide people other than to share with their members of the General Assembly. We love the growth, we love our community, but we don't want to be property taxed out of our neighborhood. Particularly for older residents, that's the concern, because even if great, and I will stand by, you want your value to go up. We do hear from a lot of folks, cool, I sell, where am I gonna move to? If I'm in Bexley, there aren't a lot of diversity of options for me to move into in a Bexley. I might have been there 3-4 decades. You could say that about a lot of other areas where we are seeing some growth. So Whitehall was the area that saw the biggest value increase. Their average increased about 71%. Their property taxes did not. It is not a 1-to-1. Should always start out with that. But their average sale price is still less than $200,000 in Whitehall. Even with that value increase, we're going to compare that to Grandview. They saw a value increase of about 19%, but their average value sale price is over $500,000. So there's additional stories to tell. Now, what do they do in terms of supporting the schools? It's tough to say what a mill is. Ohio's system is so unique when people are moving here, particularly from Texas or from Florida, even from New York. It's the ones from California who are like, this is great. Let's pay more money for a property in my neighborhood that's now going to drive everyone else's values up. We have yet to figure out the best way to explain millage. We talked about doing video, kind of like I'm just a bill, I'm just a mill. But it gets so much in the weeds so fast. It was too tough. Other questions?
We just have to sell more real estate.
There's gonna be opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you're not on, we do put out a weekly real estate dashboard. So you'll get on Sunday an email from the auditor's office. It is meant to replicate what the dispatch used to print out by zip code. Real estate transactions, when the dispatch stopped printing that, we had a couple of constituents say, hey, could you guys put this information out? So you get a weekly email. We also do a monthly newsletter, also with a real estate dashboard of the activity. What we continue to see are sales higher than they were month over month over month. And we saw 1 month that was flat, 1 month that went down 1%, but it continues to grow. How sustainable that will be, I don't know. But that activity continues. We are adding more and more population every day and not building the housing to match that. And that's what's going to continue to drive up that valuation. We are already decades behind to have the housing stock we need for the population we have. So you'll see municipalities with a big push. City of Whitehall has a resolution for the commissioners to try and build more housing. Then it gets some bureaucracy stuff, but you're going to see that push for more and more housing as our region continues to be the economic center of Ohio and other surrounding states as well. Don't forget to license your dog. You got December 1st to January 31st for those that do license. It is back to pre-COVID timeline. When COVID hit, the timeline got expanded. We're going back to pre-COVID deadline. If that's get an annual license, be like 1, 3, or lifetime license as well. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention that as well. Things you'll also see coming out of the auditor's office this week, we do an annual CHIRP report. So the auditor serves as the chair of all tax incentive review councils. So any in the local municipality that does a tax incentive, we have to review that incentive by the CHIRP. So I get to go to about 23 meetings. The CHIRP lacks teeth in that if we think it's a bad deal, all we can recommend is that local municipality to make changes or get rid of it. Goes before that local township or city council, and they can just ignore everything and renew it all day or make changes and make it even more of a sweetheart deal. But we do an annual CHIRP report, so be on the lookout. That comes out this week. And then next week, one thing we've done, not just in my administration, but previous auditors, we are able to return some tax dollars back to taxing agencies. It's the closest we can get to giving the dollars back to you as taxpayers. Because when we went to the ballot box and we said, yes, library system, we want you to have this money. Auditor's office gets a piece of that to perform our functions. We budget it so well, we can return it back to them. So there'll be news, hopefully, about our ongoing commitment and good budgeting to return their taxpayer dollars. But want to know that's occurring as well. We do get people say, well, I want that money back directly to me. It came out of my tax bill. Because it was agreed upon at the ballot box, we don't get to return it directly to you. I would if I could. Yes.
Mike, real quick question. I don't know if you'll share this or not. If I missed this, I apologize. I was writing down different notes. So if you had to guess what a percentage, are you seeing what percentage of people winning their review process?
So great question. I was hoping to have that information prepared for you all today, actually. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be about 60% are going to see a value change. And of the 40 that are gonna be no change, I'm gonna guess 20 of those presented no documentation. So great that they took the time to say, I disagree with the value, but they brought nothing to justify it. And so we can't make that change, but we look, it's gonna be about 60% last time I heard the numbers. I will tell you personally, I feel that 60% failure of the auditor's office. We should be getting these numbers right. We shouldn't need 10,000 property owners to come and engage us. I've got bad data as part of it, but some cases we just completely swung and missed in terms of what was going on in those areas, and that's frustrating. We got talented people and can do that.
And the only question why I question that is because our phones ring off the hook. This all started stuff hitting the mailbox. I'm like, actually, I wouldn't fight that because you might even be higher.
So we wouldn't increase it if you go through a property value review.
I would want mine increased because mine went up $160,000. So I cringe. But
So we have some people that were a little hesitant of. I'm afraid to challenge it because maybe they'll come increase it. Maybe we forgot that we know they don't have the addition on there. They're gonna increase it. We would not do that as part of this process. We would probably catch it again through annual maintenance if we're doing our job correctly. But it looks like it'll be around 60% through the BOR or property value review. Then we'll go BOR. Again, it's a little higher of a threshold, not as easy to bite the apple. But I wanted none. That's the challenge I told my team. If we do our job right, we should have no property value reviews. But immediately we had one that was like, we did this in 2017 and you guys didn't change anything. And that was awful here. Because if we'd done our job right, it would have been updated in 2017, it would have carried forward. They knew to the T, the people that did the work. And they just didn't update it. So we use a third party appraisal service. More behind the curtain stuff than you may want to know. There's only 2 large enough to take on a county, Franklin County, qualified in the state of Ohio. So it's either the A or the B. And so the office used one before, and then we've transitioned to another since 2017. We should have got that right. Other questions? Hearing none, thank you guys for being such a great audience and for the questions you did ask. Always feel free to shoot me an email, call the office, and we'll do everything we can for you. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. Don't leave, we're gonna do our top 20 mastermind for a little bit and.
Next.
Yep.